We had some interesting comments from our last video. James Kelly 6680 just replied with 60s rock and roll. Maybe that's what we need to start playing in the clubhouse, right? Like
1-2, swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert, back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Burrell. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
Welcome back to the Brotherly Cubs podcast. I am your little brother, Zach, and that is my big brother, John. We are your brothers who love everything Cubs baseball, or do we love everything Cubs baseball? I don't know. If you enjoyed talking about the Cubs, then hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and please join us every week as we mercilessly dive into the power, the speed, and the best team in the National League.
for all 92 of our subscribers, we encourage you to put your answer in the comments. Zach, today I ask you, if the Cubs had a class pet, what would they choose and why?
I think they would choose a spider because they would like to be bitten by one, a radioactive one, because they do the Spider-Man celebration every time they get on base, which, as you know, is only a handful of times per game.
I would choose a sloth because a lot of times people take the personality of their pets, or like when you buy a dog, like if you've ever seen 101 Dalmatians, the cartoon version, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of the Cubs players, and it just seems like their body language, the staff, the coaching staff, just are really just unenergetic. And I get it. They're not performing up to expectations. I kind of chose a sloth. Shout out to some of our commenters, our subscribers, I guess, however you want to say that. We had some interesting comments from our last video. James Kelly 6680 just replied with 60s rock and roll. Maybe that's what we need to start playing in the clubhouse, right? Like,
well, it was put your answer in the comments about which Cubs genre.
Which Cubs genre?
Yeah.
Which Cubs genre? 60s rock and roll.
No, which genre defines Cubs? Remember we said you said
which I get it now.
You didn't just say 60s rock and roll. I mean, that's why I was like
I forgot what even was the comment or the question. But the 60, because everyone else didn't reply to that, so I was like, okay.
He was
60.
Really
this guy just really loves 60s rock and roll. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, maybe we need to start playing that in the clubhouse just to kind of mess up the jive, mess up the vibe, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, the jive vibe, for sure.
The jive vibe. Carlos Cristanio said, I will save everyone's time. Jed won't do squat. So he was kind of talking about trades and things like that. T-Mad 11s again said Jed wasn't going to do anything. He won't do squat. 14 LP2 said no Alonso. So we don't think that he doesn't think that we're going to get Pete Alonso. Bregman from the Astros, perhaps. I'd rather have Vlad Jr. or Isaac Paredes. He said.
Yeah. That's
So
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think I replied to that one as well. I replied to at least like 6 or 7 of these comments, and it was just like, I think I said one of them, I said, like Pete Alonso I would love to have him, and we need some kind of a slugger in our lineup. Strike fear in the pitchers. It's like, I don't feel like, Bellinger might have been that at one point, but just he's chasing a lot this year. He just doesn't look like himself. Vlad Jr., not bad. His numbers have gotten better as of late. Paredes from the Rays, we've seen he had some interesting clutch hits there.
I mean, I want to
talk
hitting
thoughts?
more than I think. First of all, I don't want everyone to get too negative. I mean, we can get negative a little bit. I don't like the whole negativity towards Pete Alonso. If you want to talk about his character or something, okay, I don't know about that. He doesn't strike out a lot, and he walks kind of almost league average. So these people that think he has a 230 average, That's not important anymore. It's the slugging. He gets, this is a guy that can put up a 500 slug. His OPS, I think, has fallen a little bit, but he overall has like close to a 900 OPS. So you're right. We need a slugger. Vlad Jr., he sort of was a slugger this year, not as much. So you kind of have to factor that in a little bit. And then I know Paredes is having a good year. Really, third base is third and first. Those are the positions you got to target, right? So
And
Vladdy, if he
catcher.
could, yes, catcher's number one. That just is the
Yeah.
easiest. You don't have to give up a lot for it.
Right.
So that's ultimately going to be what they need to do is do catcher first, and then one of the corners, obviously.
Pete Alonso, strikeout percentage was, I think, was it 24, 25, something like that last year. So it was kind of high, but it has come down, and his average has gone up a little bit from what it was last year. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously you want to look for a slug, and you want someone who's just going to strike fear in the other pitcher, and so we'll see. We'll see. Past history has said that Jed's not going to do a whole lot. He'll probably get something on a bargain, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Recap of the previous series. The Cubs had lost the series. They lost the first game. They won the second game and then lost the third game. And thanks in part, of course, to Mark Leiter Jr. They are now sitting at 33 and 36. The offense has looked pretty bad. The bullpen has looked even worse. I think it's just the bullpen has not looked good, but it's also in part because of the offense not being able to score enough insurance runs and to not get I think more than 5. They haven't had 5 runs I think on that whole entire road trip, or maybe once. I can't even remember at this point. So there's almost no margin of error. You're most likely going to give up at least 1 run from the bullpen.
Yeah.
But yesterday was pretty bad. So
right. If you have a 2-0 lead and you go, oh, our bullpen sucks, they gave up a run or two, and it's like that's what bullpens do. They don't.
right.
Sure, when you have a really good bullpen, that's the thing is if you have a lineup, and the Cubs didn't go into this offseason thinking, man, our offense sucks, but at least our pitching's good. They thought we're kind of balanced. Our pitching is okay. Our bullpen's okay. Our offense was pretty good last year. And when that falls off a cliff and everyone's just shrugging their shoulders like, I don't know. Well, then in part, if you had like a league best bullpen, like a bunch of guys that are just striking out 40% of the hitters or something crazy, then you could afford to win 3-1 or 4-2, things like that, or 1-0. I mean, the good news is the starting pitching has been good, right? But like you said, those other 2 elements need to be better for them to win any series. They're losing these series, not getting swept, but they're also barely hanging on. So it's a tough one right now.
Of course, things that have impacted the bullpen are injuries. No Ben Brown. He has a stress reaction.
Yeah.
Of his neck. Like, what the hell? And then, of course, today was Jordan Wicks with and so obviously about Julian Merriweather still not back. Adbert Alzolay, Yency Almonte, and of course, if you remember Caleb Killian, who has been injured for who knows how long now. So the whole season, yeah. So, and of course, it's now going to be out for at least who knows another month, maybe longer. So it's a lot of these, younger pitchers are kind of impacting the bullpen depth. And when you don't have a lot of depth in your bullpen, it's like when you're Craig Counsell, you're trying to go through your options. It's like you just pick a name from a hat at this point. It's like you don't know. You'd like to play matchups, right? But then again, it's like, well, if you're playing, so what was he doing last night when he was there? There weren't any lefties scheduled.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
And I think Sam Olber was just kind of emphasizing that, maybe, Kevin Cash would go to their lefty options off the bench. So, I mean, it's hard to judge Counsell just based on everything that's gone wrong. You can nitpick. I'll get into it more for Counsell. And what are your thoughts, Zach, on this whole season?
First of
Go
all,
ahead,
I have
buddy.
a stress. We talked about stress reactions. Merriweather also had a stress reaction in his ribs and his back. I think I'm having a stress reaction just talking about this team. My head is hurting now, but it's maybe like a couple weeks ago. I know they've struggled in May. I thought they would be doing a lot better this month, and they certainly need to start winning here in this homestand. The schedule has lightened up. I think we were optimistic early on in the season, and now we're a lot less optimistic now that we've played 70 games and we're closing in on the halfway point of the season. It doesn't look as good. I do think that if we talk about trades and where the team is with regards to those, like we said, a catcher is number one. Gomes and Amaya have not really been up to speed, and you can probably afford to have a little bit of a some catcher coming in and getting some time to get used to the staff, because it's not like Gomes is hitting 700 on his OPS. I mean, he's like sub 500, and Amaya is barely over 500. Yeah, you look at that and say that's been terrible. And then if you look at the offense, some of the numbers don't look ridiculous, but if you look at runners in scoring position, they're one of the worst teams in the league. They haven't had like a 4 or 5, 6 run win in like over a month. So I think the last time they hit a grand slam was they were down 4-0. So they've even had bad luck where their pitching was bad when the offense was good. So they just haven't been able to put all three together. And like you said, it really starts with injuries. They've been injured a good deal of the season. Alzolay sucked really before he was injured. And so that felt like an injury, like he wasn't really there. It's like you're giving innings to a guy who's played a double-A, that kind of thing. Obviously, he's got a much better credit than that to his name, but he was injured and he tried to pitch through it or just wasn't doing well. There's so many things to look at, but I do think they'll wait on a bullpen trade until at least they get firmer in the buy or sell category. And also, they may get Yency Almonte back soon. I think he's doing a live BP today in Arizona, and he'll do another one in Chicago, and soon thereafter, rehab. So I think 4 or 5 days before you get to rehab, then maybe a week there, maybe less if they're just like, hey, he's throwing 94, 95. Sinker's good, slider's good, bring him up. I think they should be a little aggressive with him because they could certainly send someone down, maybe Luke Little or something. But when you look at these names even coming back, Merriweather, they're going to have to DFA guys from the bullpen because some guys are out of options. Colton Brewer's out of options. Luke Little does have options, obviously. Smiley, Hendricks, Tyson Miller, some of those guys are out of options. So it's going to get crowded once the health gets better. But to another point, they need to stay healthy. Ben Brown being gone I was hoping he'd be sort of a 7th, 8th inning guy. And the fact that he was just filling in for Jordan Wicks previously, that shows you that they weren't even healthy then. And then as soon as Wicks gets healthy, Brown goes down. So if they were fully healthy, I think we'd have a better idea what they want to do for a buy on a bullpen piece. You got to maybe fully see what the bullpen has until you make a decision. But who knows if that will ever get here, right? Will they ever be fully healthy? So what are your thoughts on some of these so far?
I think off camera, or not when we weren't recording, but the training staff is just like, should we just clean house with our training staff? There's no reason.
Right. Yeah, that is upsetting
and
to
Wicks
me.
just got back. Like, he just got back. So are we rushing? Like, why are we even rushing? We're like 7.5 games back. It's like, well, maybe are we not stretching? Like, what's going on?
I do
like,
think
I'm really concerned here.
They really did take their time with Wicks. I mean, he had like 3 or 4 rehab starts before he came back. It's not like he did. I don't know. The oblique thing is a weird one. You've seen him with the obliques. Wicks, we don't know what these guys are going through with their pregame stuff. But to be like 5 outs into the game and have an oblique, it does suck. I mean, it's
unreal.
You do wonder about preparation a little bit from the training staff. Are they not getting these guys ready? A lot of pitching really all year. There's been tons of pitchers. Aside from the whole Steele injuring his hamstring in the middle of a play, I get it, heat of the moment. But the rest of it is very concerning, right? It's weird to me.
It's weird. It's crazy. there's always that saying of the injury bug, right? It's just biting. The injury bug's biting everybody, and like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, damn, is it actually a thing like that? It's contagious. Like all these injuries it's just insane. I can't remember the last time that at least a Chicago Cubs team was this injured, and so freaking. It feels like it's a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3. It's like every other day somebody was getting injured.
Yeah.
And
the month
now
of May was brutal.
Ben Brown just went out the next day. Jordan Wicks is out, and it's like, man, just nothing seems to be going right. It's hard to find a positive. Just listening to Locked On Cubs or CHGO, it's to a podcast sometimes when it's the same message. Like we're preaching about the same thing as fans. It's like, well, the hitting's got to be better. Oh, the bullpen's got to be better. It's like everything. Like it doesn't seem like there's one issue. That the defense sucks. It's like just pick anything and it sucks. So, I mean, now it's time to go off on Counsell. What the hell are you doing? You're getting paid $8 million a year to sit there post game for 5 minutes and recap what someone did positively, like one of the pitchers, whatever, Justin Steele or Javier, whatever, and that's it. Now I'm just gonna go, I don't know, read a book. It doesn't seem like he's very inspirational. It doesn't seem like he has any fire in his belly, like a typical earlier decades of baseball, Lou Piniella or somebody. Like you just pick somebody. It's like,
yeah,
I
don't want to
have some kind of passion, for your team. I don't want to put it all on Counsell. I don't, but there's got to be some kind of do something different. Like mix up the routines, like
mix up the lineup.
I don't know, like
steal some bases.
They started to be. They stole like what was it? 6 stolen bases, 5 or 6 stolen bases the other day. I was like, okay, finally. Where was this? Like 2 months ago. And he's traditionally not a very aggressive manager when it comes to the base paths and things like that. And to his, to Counsell's defense, I don't think he's ever had to deal with this many problems. The offense not clicking, the bullpen sucking, the defense, like just everything all at once. And so, maybe he's not the right manager for this point in the season to kind of like turn things around. I don't know. It's just, was it his name Pat Murphy? Like people are like now speculating, was Pat Murphy the one running the show for the Brewers instead of Counsell? Like, was he just like the one pulling this, telling him what to do? I mean, like I said, I'm fully off on Craig Counsell, but it's just like, have something, man. Like you got to be passionate. Cap, I think whatever David Kaplan was mentioning this as well on Twitter. It's like, where's the passion? Freaking passion, and just do something different.
Yeah.
Take the ride bike to work or something.
That'll help. Yeah. Riding the exercise. Have an extra half hour or something of batting practice if the offense is sucking that. But like, we got to do something different. You just can't sit here and do the same thing. Well, what do we say about Dustin Kelly? I mean, he's the hitting coach, and he did really well
Dustin
last
Kelly
year,
is.
I'm going to put it on him. I mean, he's the hitting coach.
Put it in Kelly because, I mean, you can put it on so many people. That's the thing is organizationally, the Cubs are just run terribly. They run terribly to like the Brewers or something like that, or I don't know. It's just top to bottom. It's just completely sucking, and I'm sick and tired of it. Like, I was on Twitter and I'm seeing rumors about Luis was it Garrett Crochet being acquired by the Dodgers, and it's like every fucking year. Excuse my language, but every year the Dodgers are interested in acquiring not one but like 2 of some of the best players on like a random team, like the White Sox that have basically nobody else good. It's just
they're not going to trade Garrett Crochet. I think he's probably under like arbitration still.
Dodgers will find a way to get it done. They'll find a way.
I do think that on expiring
deals, they always do though.
Okay, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, they got Trey Turner and Max Scherzer. Those were expiring deals when they got them. They let them walk. I mean, is that good asset management? Trading for guys and letting them walk after half a year? If
the point is
Crochet,
they're aggressive.
Cubs need to be aggressive, but how can you be aggressive when you don't have a decision? I mean, last year they actually looked like they were going to sell Bellinger and Stroman and et al, all the bullpen pieces, and then in July they went on a just massive 9-game winning streak or whatever it was. When I was getting married, I wasn't even paying attention to baseball for a week, and all of a sudden the Cubs are like the best team in the National League for a couple weeks. And look, and they did make some decisions once it was clear that they had a path. Right now, it's still actually not clear. I mean, I know we'll
Yeah,
talk about that next probably, but I would say if this keeps going, you got to sell. We talked about buying last time. The next time they turn
that's
around and beat some
that's what I was.
Cardinals and Giants, we'll probably talk about, hey, they'll buy. I would say if there's guys like Talkman and Leiter that are under arbitration, um, I think Talkman still has options, which makes him really valuable, and that makes me think that the Cubs won't trade him unless they get a really good package back. But I also think that uh, aside from those guys, there's not a whole lot left with Hap. He and Suzuki are not free agents until after 2026, so they don't just have one additional year; they have 2 years. Hap would have to waive his no trade. I think Suzuki also has a no trade. So those are difficult. They don't have. It's not as clean as it's been in years past. The only other guy I would say would maybe be like Cody Bellinger, who has like a player option. But in terms of him going to another team, you know, maybe that is a direction they go. Like if they really lean into sucking, you could trade Cody Bellinger, maybe eat a little bit of the salary this year, and then maybe he exercises his option, or not. That actually might be entertaining to a team. Yeah, hey, we might lose him. He might opt in, and all of a sudden now we have an extra year of Bellinger. And at that point, then you can play
But do we
PCA. You
want
can
an
play.
extra year of Bellinger though? Like, do you want that?
I'm saying you trade him, and then that other team makes that decision. I mean,
Oh,
you're if you're giving up Bellinger, you're saying, you know what? If he this deal might expire, he might get a new contract. He's like a pseudo expiring deal. At this point, I think he might opt in because he's not having a great season. It's not
right.
pitiful, but he'll probably opt in for next year. So, and maybe the other team has to think about that too. What if he opts in? But I would say you could sell Bellinger as your piece, and then even though the Cubs were hammering for to sign him this offseason at
Right.
CubsCon, it would be unpopular. So if you look at all the decisions they make, there's only a couple trades you can make.
I think they're already unpopular though, right? I mean, right? Like,
So
who's on
trade
board with
Bellinger then.
Jed and who's on board? Someone was saying in the comments, like, trade Jed. Yeah, okay. I mean, if I could, I would have done it
Yeah,
a long time ago, buddy. Like, I,
they're not a.
I don't think they're very popular. I don't think they're well liked, and I think maybe that's also what's, I know they're what, like, ninth in payroll, so they're not. It's not like they're, you know, penny pinching incredibly, but it's
They're
you
just
gotta
not
find.
making the good
They're
deals
not
they thought
making.
they were. I mean, Swanson ended up unfortunately not being a good deal. If you were to
Yeah,
turn back the clock and just gave shortstop to Nico Horner, then he's already a good hitter. Maybe you give Morel second base and then go out and get Matt Chapman. That actually looks like a dramatically better lineup, putting Chapman in over Swanson. You've got good defense at third. You've got okay defense at second. Maybe they made that mistake, and then you extend Hap, and you sit there and say, well, we have a lot of outfielders on this team in the minors like Owen Casey. So that's what I'm a little worried about is where do you play guys like Owen Casey, who's red hot right now for the I Cubs. PCA is going to need a little bit more plate appearance on a consistent basis. Maybe that's what the Cubs do if they trade Bellinger is they give PCA some runway in center field and he can really get a body of work under him to improve. Because if he's your center fielder of the future, you either A, need to trade him and maximize his value, or B, you need him to hit. And you can't really do that playing a couple times a week.
right.
It's a difficult position,
He's
right?
got
I
to
mean,
play pretty consistently. There was also someone in the chat mentioning, playing Patrick Wisdom more frequently, and
I would trade him. I forgot to
I
mention
would
him,
I
but
would just trade him too. Yeah, I think he's versatile. He can play the hot corners, and I mean,
yeah,
maybe I wouldn't give him any much more time than I would anybody else really at this point. Everybody just has to start hitting and just
yeah.
start making better decisions at the plate and just um I don't know, it's just frustrating.
So where are you on the buy or sell deal? What do you think the Cubs will really
I
do next?
like you said. I mean, we're kind of still trying to figure out what are we as a team, but it's starting to trend in the wrong direction. So my thing is, I really don't care at this point. I just want them to pick a lane, right? They just
Hmm.
pick a lane. I don't care if you're going to be buyers. Okay, then make up your mind that you're going to compete, do something different, and try to improve. And I know he's flipped around the lineup a little bit, Counsell, and so like I get that he's trying new things, but like you can't sit there with a roster with Gomes and Amaya and not do anything. Like the dude's Amaya was kicking the ball the other day. Like I know it's like you couldn't find him. Like what the hell is going on with this team? Is this real life?
Yeah,
Like
that's
it's just
exactly.
I was like, what is going on? Like it's just a joke at this point. I'm like, we look so embarrassing. Just you know, I can only imagine like the other fans of the other team that we go into their stadium, and it's like you see something like that, and you just kicking back, eating your popcorn, and just laughing at it, like he
Oh
just kicked
yeah,
the ball. What an idiot! So I mean, it's
yeah.
like, but do something. Like I said, I don't care if they sell. I don't care if they buy, but make up your mind. I don't want to play 500 ball and then have like a crappy draft pick.
Well,
You know, I mean, I'd
let
like
me
a relatively high draft pick to kind of have impact on the roster in the next year or two.
let me just say this though. Let's back up a little bit because the Cubs. Okay, so I don't have it off the top of my head where Cade Horton was drafted in 2022. I think he was like 8 or somewhere 9. So he was in a good spot. He was in the top 10. But, Matt Shaw was like number 14. So the Cubs barely missed the playoffs and they got a guy who they think he's batting okay at Double A. They think he's going to be like the third baseman or a utility second, third baseman of the future. So it's not necessarily can you get a top 10 pick. It certainly helps. I mean, it'll help you get like maybe another power
Cade
arm or like I don't know, but I don't think you
Ca-
could sit here and
Cade Horton was
say
selected seventh. Cade Horton was seventh
seventh.
overall. Yeah,
So
in the 2022. Yeah. So I mean, I okay, fine, okay, but I just
the
like, what
Cubs.
are you gonna you're gonna play what 500
So
ball the net? Like we'd have to go on an absolute tear, and like we did this last year. We
you
went
just got
on
to
an
see
absolute tear in June. Was it June? I think it was June or
July,
in
a little
July,
bit of both.
and
Yeah,
we were just like gas because it's like we built this hole. I think we were like what 10 or 12 games under 500, and we're heading towards that direction now, towards
I
like the
mean,
same thing. So it's like by the
let's
time
back up a
we
little bit. They're 3 games under 500. It sucks, but they're 1 game out of the wild card. So if you look at it from that perspective, teams typically don't sell when they're in the playoff chase. It just doesn't happen. So what I think is gonna
I
happen
get that.
is let me just tie this all together here because I think I've got an idea of what they're gonna do. Okay. They're not going to make any decisions. If anything, they will buy a catcher. I think that makes a lot of sense. Maybe they can extend him in the offseason. They need something better than Amaya even, and Amaya can be the
But
backup.
though, like when do you, I feel like you have to do that quick to make some kind of an impact. You have to learn the pitching staff. Like
Do it
you have
now.
to
I'm
learn
I'm
the
not
nuance.
I'm not
Do it now.
debating.
Yeah, exactly.
They need to do it now. I will say for the rest of the deals that all make sense. You buy, okay, you buy, but it's going to happen in July. Okay, they're not going to make the decision now because they could go to like you said 10, 12 games under 500, and then they're sellers. And then if the rest of the league is competitive and they're sellers, there might be only one of 7 or 8 teams that's definitively selling. So if they want to sell, they have to make sure they really do suck, and then they could take advantage of the market. But if you look at it, they're tilted towards buying because, like I said, they have like 2 or 3 guys they could sell: Leiter, Talkman, Wisdom, guys of that vein. Maybe Neris. I don't think you would even get much for him. So there's only a handful of guys you can sell. In previous years, they sold like 7 or 8 guys, and one they sucked early and they gave up like a lot of guys. I mean, they made some good deals too. So I do think they're going to wait a little bit until they can absolutely confirm what position they're in, because there's no reason to start giving up now when they're only a game out of the wild card. I mean, they want to make the playoffs. They're not 10 games under 500 right now. They still need to just get it together. And if they're 500, let me say this, if they're 500 at the trade deadline, but they're 10, or let's say they're 7 or 8 games back of a playoff spot, they'll probably sell, right? They'll probably sell a couple pieces and make that work. But I would guess they'll probably end up buying. Now, they could make a bad decision and buy a Jose Cuas. They need to not do that because that's not good prospect management. But I think getting Candelario at the last offseason wasn't necessarily a bad deal. They didn't re-sign him. Maybe they could have. I don't know. But to me, that's a decision they should make, and they could do that at the deadline.
What's the cutoff for you to buy or sell? Like how many games back? Because they're 7.5 right now, and
they're a game back of the wild card, though. I mean, if you just
the division's probably out of reach. I mean, I know it's early.
Toast. Yeah.
Okay, so they're how much? They're game and a half out of the wild card.
They're one single game out of the third wild card spot, and if you look at it, they're even a game. They're 2.5 games out of the second and 4.5 out of the first. So this NL playoff chase sucks. Every team sucks. So the Cubs have not put them in a position to sell because they could still buy and win the division. If you look at the players they have on this team that have performed to over an 800 OPS, Suzuki, Bellinger, even Swanson's done that. I've given up on him having like a really good OPS. Morel has been good in the past. Bush has shown some promise. They could even give Bush more time, put him in a bench role and get an upgrade here and there, upgrade third base and put Morel at DH and improve the defense at third. There's a few things they could do. And if they make those decisions, they might even be long-term decisions. They could re-sign a guy. I'm not saying they'll go get a superstar, but it's still on the table.
Do you think they're going to go buy the pieces that they need to compete to be a team like the Diamondbacks that just kind of sneak in and they have enough offense? Because the Diamondbacks had an offense, they had pitching, and they were hitting at the right time. So I'm going to buy the right pieces to compete.
I mean, I think they'll buy a catcher, and I think they'll buy a bullpen piece. And really what they're going to do is they're going to hope for health from Almonte and Merriweather. And if those guys get healthy, this thing looks a lot different. I mean, if you had Merriweather back the entire season, this thing looks drastically different. I mean, Almonte is an eighth inning guy.
You're probably talking about what, 16 blown saves at least lost the lead. So, I mean, that probably goes down to at least 10. I would think that he would save at least another, 6 or 7 games. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I just want them to pick a lane and just, it's like, okay, if you're going to lose, just lose out. That way I don't have to watch this crap, that way we have building towards the future. We'll start selling off pieces that absolutely suck. I guess nobody wants someone that sucks, but I just want them to pick a lane. They have to, you said. I think they will buy a catcher.
I think they've sold a few years in a row, or like in 2 of the 3 last years, and I don't think it's a very, very good decision for fans to see their team slip into last place. A business decision. I think that owners take into account some of that stuff. They don't always have, when the Cubs were sucking, they did lean into sucking, and it worked out pretty well. But at the same turn, you can develop draft picks. The Dodgers and the Rays have done this for years and years. You can be a playoff team, you can draft, and you can develop. You can develop 5th round picks. I mean, look at what Steele was. Wasn't he a 5th or a 7th round pick? I mean, he wasn't a 1st round pick. I'll say that. I don't think he was a 1st round.
No.
And if you looked at some of the other players, not all of them are a good chunk of them are 1st round picks, but you could develop a number. I mean, what was Ed Howard? I think he was like a top. I thought maybe he was number 20 or something, but that just shows you you can draft at 14 and 7, like Shaw and Horton, get top prospects. Then you could draft at 20, not very far down the road, and develop a non-prospect, right? So you just never know. I mean, you got to do the work on the development side. And it's a little bit different than like the NBA draft or the NFL draft, where you're going to get a top superstar if you draft in the top 5. You're not going to get a Wembanyama. You might even get a top 1 pick, and he may never see the field. I mean, it's way different. So I don't want to sit here and say they need to sell every single year, but if they really start to suck even worse, then I bet they will. I bet they'll sell.
Steele was a 5th round pick. 139.
And he's really good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm encouraged to look on the positive side. It's just a lot of negative, but I mean, looking at our pitching staff, Justin Steele was great. He just deserves better than that. I don't even know when the last time we actually won one of his starts was now. I don't like 10. We haven't won the last like 10 starts or something like that for Justin Steele. I feel like just terrible. He's got bad luck. I mean, the last outing I think was when, what was it? There was some kind of, that was the kick ball, I think, right?
Yeah, there was like a strikeout and a drop.
Yeah, he had like five. He had like 5 strikeouts or something like that in the inning.
He threw a pick off attempt that should have got Ellie De La Cruz out, but then
right
threw a ball that hit the dirt and Bodie had to catch it, and then Ellie De La Cruz is really fast, so yeah, it was a terrible inning.
You can't make this stuff up. Like, you pick a guy off, but you still don't get him out. You're professional baseball, but you throw the ball in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're throwing from first to second, and you're throwing the ball. Seiya Suzuki bounces a throw from right field like 3 times in like one game. It's like, what are we doing?
The defense.
Where are the fundamentals?
Yeah, it's got to be better. That's something they.
But
need
that
to
starts with
I
think that starts with the coaching, though. Like, that's something that we should be preaching, pregame and really emphasizing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just don't like to see it continue is really disheartening, and I feel bad for Cub fans having to sit through 162 game season of just basically it's been crap except for the 17-9 start. But even then, there were some blown saves in there. There was like 2 or 3 blown saves, so it wasn't pretty. It didn't feel amazing to be 17-9.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird how quickly things have accelerated. And for how long, it's like, it's one thing to go in a slump for like maybe a couple weeks or so, but for, was it 6 weeks now, 7 weeks? It's just unheard of. So anyways, I'm done, I think, for today. That's my rant. Any other thoughts, Zach?
No, I'm ready to wrap it up as well.
I like said, I mean, just like doing a podcast about when the Cubs are it's the same story about what's wrong with the team. They're not fixing it. It's like, it's hard to watch it. And I don't now. It's like, I just check the box score in some games and I'm just like, oh, okay, we lost, it's what I figured would happen. So
yeah.
Anyways. Well, leave your thoughts in the comments below, guys. What should the Cubs do differently? What can we do differently? What,
Yep.
Do we need more do we need more work on the fundamentals? Just have a team out. Like, I would take my softball team out there when I was coaching softball this year. Just start working on grounders, working on the throw, hit the cutoff man. If you're in the outfield, hit the cutoff man. If the play's, going home, and just like start doing the right things, like Larry Brown, the NBA coach, former NBA coach, would always preach that, to play the game the right way, to play fundamentally good basketball. Same thing in baseball. It's like, you're professional players. Maybe some of these iCubs could actually have, some impact on the game. Owen Casey. Should we call up Owen Casey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with that. I think that's.
Why not?
Not a bad decision.
I've seen so many pitches. I can't stand that. I cannot stand that Seiya Suzuki takes so many first pitches for strikes. It's just unreal. It's like, I get that, you want to be patient and get your count up into a hitter's count, but damn, at some point you got to pitch. So.
Right. Agreed.
All right. Well, on that note, that's all the time we have today here on the Brotherly Cubs podcast. Thanks for joining us. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, join the conversation with us on Twitter, join the rants on Twitter at Brotherly Cubs or Spotify. And I'm your big brother, John.
And I'm your little brother, Zach.
And we will see you next week as we recap the series we have the Giants and the Cardinals.
Yep.
And until next time, thanks for tuning in to the pod, and we will catch you later.
See ya.
Listen to this crowd.